You've got only one life and you've got one liver. Hepatitis can devastate both. Today, July 28, 2023, is recognized by the United Nations and the World Health Organization as World Hepatitis Day. It is a day set aside to create awareness against the disease caused by the viral infection which inflames the liver. And this year's commemoration will be observed under the theme Hepatitis Can't Wait. This theme highlights the dangers of the viral infection. To commemorate the 2023 World Hepatitis Day, Ekohotblog visited Bagada General Hospital to speak to Dr. Jaho Abiodun Austin, a consultant physician and cardiologist. Dr. Jaho gives more insight into what hepatitis is all about, the types, ways of transmission, symptoms, and how to treat or manage it.
Jaho Abiodun Austin. I'm a consultant cardiologist and physician, Bagada General Hospital.
Okay, so we're here to commemorate the World Hepatitis Day, today, July 28th. So let's start. Can you tell us what hepatitis is all about? What is it?
Thank you very much for the question. Very right, July 28th, it's chosen as World Hepatitis Day, just to earmark the date that the discoverer of hepatitis B was born. That's Baruch Blumberg. And so in 1965, he was able to discover hepatitis. And so hepatitis essentially means inflammation of the liver. And this inflammation of the liver can be as a result of so many causes. There is what we call the hepatotrophic viruses. Those are very important causes of hepatitis. Then we have other causes of hepatitis, such as maybe chronic alcohol use and even drugs that we use for treating some ailments, such as even the TB and the rest, and some other drug we use in the treatment of some other ailments. Sometimes it could even be some chemicals that we use and that can be toxic to the liver. And sometimes also we could have other causes such as maybe all those herbal concussions that we take. Sometimes they can be toxic to the liver. And sometimes even we have some disorders in the body too, and some conditions that can affect the liver as well. Although sometimes this may not be called hepatitis, but at the same time they could be deleterious to the liver, such as when somebody has heart problems, somebody has sickle cell disease and the rest, it can also affect the liver. But basically, just as I've said, hepatitis means inflammation of the liver.
Okay, inflammation of the liver. And this year's commemoration is happening under the slogan of one life, one liver. How significant is this to the elimination of hepatitis? Actually, the theme for hepatitis commemoration this year is "We Are Not Waiting." We're trying to talk about accelerating efforts in eliminating hepatitis, then trying to also see how we can improve testing, and those who can benefit from treatment, then we offer them such treatment as soon as possible. But one life, one liver, as we know, liver is a very important organ to the body. It helps in so many functions, such as in what we eat. It helps to be able to sieve those things we eat so that they can be useful to the body. And then in terms of production of some substances, glucose also, it has a percentage of glucose that it produces. Then it helps detoxify so many used things that the body has produced, and it helps to remove it also from the body. It also produces some things that are needed for clotting system in the body. So you can imagine if all this plethoric of functions are affected as a way of not taking care of our liver. So it's something that is going to impact very negatively to that individual. Liver is a very important organ to the body, so we must guide it jealously, protect it, just as the team has actually shown.
Okay, so let's talk about the strains of hepatitis we have. We have 5 main strains of hepatitis, that's A to E. Can you tell us how they differ and how they affect the human system?
Just as you rightly said, hepatitis A, B, C, D, E. The A is the one that we know that the difference is mainly how they are transmitted. We say it's transmitted via the fecal-oral system. That is what we take through our mouth. Maybe it's put into some of the food we eat or the water we drink. So it's contracted through that system. And once the person has it, most often it runs an acute course that is over a few days to a few weeks, then it abates. And what essentially happens is that the person has this feeling of malaise, that is not feeling well, have some fever, at a point might have some joint pain, some yellowness of the eye. And so naturally it runs its course and then it goes. Then it's most essentially what we do is to give supportive care to the individual. And if the person is having issue with losing fluid, we rehydrate the person. Then at the same time, if some persons that have problem in terms of running some severe form of it, although very rare, those people are given some medicines that can actually address the virus itself. And by and large, the A runs a natural course, then it goes. Then why B? It's, in fact, that's the one of most importance in terms of health. It is quite common in this part of the world. Probably you'll be asking me questions as regards this, but the difference essentially is also in terms of how it is acquired, how it affects the individual. And usually through blood products and maybe blood transfusion, unscreened, and blood that is not properly screened, and it transfused to the person and the blood is having hepatitis B in it, the individual can contract it. Then use of unsafe things to do scarifications and tattoo markings, sexual intercourse that is not protected in individual who already has it can also maybe transmit it to others. So then also mother to child, especially during that period of delivery, the individual can have it. It runs its own course to the acute phase, just like the hepatitis A that I described, but majority of it, if it is childhood, the person contracted it in childhood, especially children during the time they are playing around. If a child has hepatitis B and the blood maybe just is smeared on the clothing of in the home of that person or the beddings, another child maybe in the same home that unknowingly to the parents, they are not aware that the child has hepatitis B. For the fact that the virus can last even up to 7 days on that surface, and that child has an open wound, he can easily smear it on his arm and he also contracts it. Such individuals, most often, they carry it. About 90% of them, they run a chronic course. And that is, it can go into adulthood and go into the sequelae of becoming a cirrhosis, becoming hepatocellular carcinoma. But those who acquire it in adulthood, and about 80 to 85% of them, and if some authorities even define like 90 to 95% of them, they clear it up. Their immune system helps to clear it so that they don't progress into the chronic state. And so, but the remaining percent of them in adult, about 10 to 5% of them, they progress into chronic state. They become, they start having the terminal part of the chronic liver disease, cirrhosis, then sometime also hepatocellular carcinoma. And at this stage, little or nothing can be done. Rather, you just manage the person. But I think that's essentially one of the, the differences between the hepatitis B and A. Then we have C as well. C also, the mode of transmission is similar to the B that I've described. except that for it has that tendency. Almost about 85% of them, they go into becoming a chronic state, unlike the other B. And so, they also can go into cirrhosis, they can go into hepatocellular carcinoma. It's not as common as the B that I mentioned. Like for instance, in this part of the world, about 1.1%, while hepatitis B, from authorities say about 9.5% of individuals in Nigeria, for instance, have it, while worldwide it's running to millions, about 260 million plus individuals worldwide that have hepatitis B. Then we have hepatitis D. Hepatitis D cannot occur on its own. It occurs side by side with hepatitis B. It's like brother and sister. Without that hepatitis B, D cannot survive. In fact, B is a DNA, while the other hepatitis are RNA viruses. So this DNA virus of B have to be with the RNA virus of D for it to be able to survive. So essentially, the way the B presents, that's the way also D also presents. And management essentially is the same. If you ask me, anybody that we actually pick as having hepatitis B should also be screened for hepatitis D, so that we'll know, because the outcome for those who have a combined hepatitis B and D is worse than those who just have hepatitis B on its own. Why hepatitis E is actually the fifth one, not as common as the one I mentioned, the fecal-oral transmission too, especially around pregnancy period and the rest in females. So, and also it's run an acute course, and it's also an RNA virus mediated type of hepatitis. So essentially these are the 5 very common and important causes of viral mediated hepatitis.
Okay, so from all you have said, hepatitis B seems predominant, especially in this part of the world. Let's talk about vaccination for hepatitis B. What is the vaccination gap for hepatitis B, maybe at infant or adulthood? Vaccination.
Thank you very much. As a child is born, the recommendation within 24 hours of birth, the child supposed to be vaccinated with hepatitis B antigen, that is the vaccine itself. Then about 1 to 2 months later, that is 4 to 8 weeks later, the child receives a booster dose. Then about 6 months later, it takes another booster dose. But take for instance, if the child is born to a parent, a mother that is hepatitis B positive, we will not just do only that type of vaccination. That vaccination that I've just described now is called active vaccination. There's also what we call a passive one. So this passive can be offered to that child that is born to a woman that is hepatitis B positive alongside the active that I've described. So that child should be given under 12 hours of delivery, both the immunoglobulin and the vaccine, although at different sites of the body, so that we don't have a cross reaction between the two agent or substrate. So the vaccine for adults is still the same gap, and you give a start dose, and about 1 to 2 months later you give a booster dose, and about 6 months thereafter you give another booster dose. We can give a very significant coverage in terms of prevention in acquiring the infection. If you permit me to even go beyond that, for example, there may be an individual is married to a spouse that is having hepatitis B, what we call discordant couples in terms of hepatitis B infection. Married to an individual that is hepatitis B positive, and he is negative or she is negative. In fact, we've received all sorts of questioning in clinics. Am I free to reprocreate with my wife? Am I free to reprocreate with my husband, being that the other party is positive and me, I'm negative? So what we just discussed is, first of all, the person that is positive, let the person know his or her viral load. Let the person know the infectivity state of the virus, that is checking what we call the E antigen. Then the person that is negative, discordantly negative, the person we have to, first of all, know whether he's actually negative or not. If he is actually negative, he can then be given the vaccination. Then if they want to go into the act of reprocreating, he can equally even have the immunoglobulin so as to reduce his acquiring the infection from the partner that is positive. So if you equally, for the partner that is positive, you've checked the viral load is very low, the infectivity state is very low, it means you've reduced that risk of transmitting the infection to the negative individual. And on top of that, sometimes you can even advise them on safe sex using some barrier method, especially the male condom, and to be able to reduce the susceptibility to acquiring it.
Okay, so the United Nations has been striving to meet up with the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030, and we have hepatitis here. So what are the measures you think, the gaps that can be taken to eliminate this in order to meet up to the Sustainable Development Goals?
Thank you very much for this question. It's a laudable SDG that has been projected by the WHO, United Nations. If you look at the theme for hepatitis date this year, it says looking around the theme, it says we want to accelerate elimination. Then we want to see how we can improve testing. Then those who would deserve treatment, then we treat. So if we accelerate that testing, and those who are at risk for acquiring hepatitis B, like those that I've mentioned, especially also those in the healthcare system, those of us in the healthcare system here, from the cleaner who is making that contact with the clothing or the beddings of patients, and even the what we call body fluid of the patient, from that cleaner to the nurse, to the doctor, to those staff that work in the morgue, and even the embalmers. So we have to take active effort to screen them. And so if we screen them and they are negative, then we can introduce that vaccination, help them to be vaccinated and take up to the required number of booster doses. Then we know that we've been able to achieve this prevention to a very large extent. Then advocacy, also making awareness that this is there, that is educating people that hepatitis is real, and because the liver is a very important organ to the body, and they need to make all effort, especially the healthcare system, to appreciate the concept of universal prevention of diseases. And that universal caution is that we should agree and see every body fluid and blood to be infectious until proven otherwise, which means as we are touching any patient, we should wear our gloves. As we are leaving the patient bedside, we should wash our hands. Then that cleaner also, when he's making contact with any beddings or anything, he should also wear his gloves as much as possible. Then protective sexual intercourse is also very key. Then avoiding tattooing, if it is not necessary, avoiding scarification masks if it is not necessary, especially with unsterilized tools. All these things are very, very necessary so as to be able to prevent contracting this very deadly disease, if I will put it, to individual. So Apart from this, we need also to be able to keep educating. Even to me, I think right from primary school, secondary school level, we could advocate this, because as these children are even playing in their school, we don't know who is hepatitis positive, and they could have a small wound, and as they smear it on any surface, just as I've said earlier, the other child, other pupil in the same class, and for the fact that the organism can last for more than 7 days or thereabouts, and if he has a wound and he equally make contact with that body fluid or blood of that child that has it, he could contract it. So, but by the time we educate them in school that, oh, there is this disease or disorder, and they should be careful, cover your wound, and if you have any wound, and make sure you able to clean it properly and get it treated, and if there is need to investigate for that, then let it be investigated. By and large, we'll be able to help in achieving the SDG that is prescribed, prescribed by the WHO UN.
Okay, let me draw out advocacy and awareness, and I think that is one of the biggest steps in elimination of any infectious disease. So in your professional opinion, how aware are people about hepatitis? Because I know basically everybody knows about HIV, AIDS, cancer, but hepatitis, how well informed are people about it?
Well, people, especially the medical community, to a large extent, at least my own community, for instance, the medical doctors, we know that there is hepatitis, and we try to observe the universal precaution as much as possible. But of course, the cleaner there is not that aware as the others are informed. So these are the group of persons, I think, in the system, advocacy, education, should be made known to them periodically, if you ask me, so that they too get informed as much as possible. Then also, if you look at the entire community, the entire country as well, even in the on the television, radio, jingles can be going on, especially on occasion like this, and let the enlightenment go out there that there's hepatitis, it is real, and we need to guide against it so as to be able to safeguard our liver.
Okay, so to round up this interview, hepatitis, a deadly killer. Tell us, why is it deadly? Why is it regarded as deadly?
Well, I made that statement, it wasn't really a mistake, or not that it just fell out of my mouth. It's actually a deadly killer, because if you see those who have the chronic state that decompensates, and decompensate, they now, it's something that, of course, all the activity that the liver does is compromised in that individual. So, and at that point in time is mainly supportive care, and to see how we can manage the situation. And as I said, if you look at those who die from the chronic liver disease and the terminal stage, is quite a large figure, although I cannot actually pick on the figure now in terms of the mortality of those who die from hepatitis side by side the hepatocellular carcinoma. Because if a condition can cause the liver to become fibrotic, that is, the texture that it used to have before, in order to be able to be having optimal function, is compromised, it can no longer do its activity, then it's a big problem. Then it turns to a cancer in the terminal state as well. In some person, it's a problem. So, and looking also at the cost implication, and somebody that is earning how much in a month, the drugs only that are used to manage, not to cure, because as the person run into it, most of them, especially B, it's not curable, at least for now. It's not curable, it's just managed, it's treated. So the buying those drugs and the likes to be able to keep that person going and it's not easy, so it will impact negatively on his income, impact negatively even his psychosocial health. And you can imagine somebody that has been able to do a lot before is just incapacitated with a swollen abdomen, and he cannot move, and is very weak. He cannot do the things he used to do before. So it can impact in his psychological state, or on his psychological state rather. So, and the world, the country as a whole, it can also impact negatively. You can imagine putting structures in place in order to be able to tighten the awareness and the management of hepatitis. It's something that also impact negatively on the economy of a country. Then, looking at also the system worldwide also, it also impacts negatively on the economy of the whole world as well.
So this is the last now. To the public viewers who will be watching this interview, what is your message to them on this day as we commemorate the World Hepatitis Day? Thank you very much.
Just as the theme says, so we are not waiting. That's the theme for this year Hepatitis Day. We are not waiting, and we want to eliminate hepatitis as much as possible. And by doing this, we want to go out there. Those of us that do not know our status, we want to go and walk into any health facility, seek for screening for hepatitis, the common ones, and the common one that we usually screen for hepatitis B, C. Then if possible, if we can screen for others, we should screen for them. Then after screening, if there is need to treat, then we sought for that treatment. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.